half of the books then. Fourth one is The City of Fallen Angels. The next one after that is The City of Lost Souls. I think you know the main gist of these titles now. The last one, the sixth book, is The City of Heavenly Fire, which are a lot more bigger than that book. Because I pretty much got it as soon as it came out in my local bookshop. So I couldn't wait for the small editions because I was so excited to read this one. We'll go on the fourth book this first, obviously, and City of Fallen Angels. And my very main gist of this book was meh. Like, it wasn't as good as the three previous books. I felt like the characters have sort of done their bit, if that makes sense, but I understood that Cassandra Clare felt that there was still like a story to be told, especially with Sebastian's body being missing at the end of the third book, which is brilliant. Just what we need. The main gist in this book is pretty much a filler of what's going to happen for the next two books. So basically Jace is having nightmares about killing Clary, which any boyfriend would love to have. This is mainly because of Lilith being around, because Lilith is Sebastian's demonic mother, so he has his yeah, you get it. Basically he's having nightmares because Lilith is sort of possessing him or compelling him to have these sort of nightmares to sort of control him, to be linked up with Sebastian, and to bring Sebastian back to life, basically. And because of that, he's avoiding Clary. And there's also a lot of weird things happening as well. And Jocelyn and Clary discovered that someone, I think it was Lilith actually, someone is making demonic babies again, just like with Sebastian. But all these babies sort of died because they couldn't handle the demonic blood. And another thing is, I think needs to be touched on, is that Clary sort of developed her shadow hunting skills, which could be more improved. At the end is pretty much a big cliffhanger because Jace at the end has brought, unknowingly at first, brought Sebastian back to life, and now he is linked to him, so he becomes sort of Sebastian's slave in a way, but they're sort of friends in a weird way. And again, let's talk about the fifth book, City of Lost Souls. Oh, lost souls they are. Yeah, like I said, Jace and Sebastian sort of become weird friends because they have this sort of link. But because of that, I don't really like Jace in this book because he's not really himself. You know, you can tell he's not really himself. He's always complying with Sebastian and being like, yes, I'll do this, I'll do that. And I was like, didn't you just kill this guy in the two previous books? I can't really blame Jace though for that. It was because of the bloody link and everything like that. And that just complicates me things so much. But Clary actually goes with Sebastian and Jace to try and get Jace out of the link of some sort, but she still has contact with Simon through the Selene Queen's fairy rings. Like they put it on and they can have contact with each other basically, without anyone knowing and without any distant limits, I don't think anyway. Simon, Isabel, Alec, Magnus and whoever else are trying to find a way to unlink Sebastian and Jace from their stupid ritual bond, and Simon amazingly has to summon a Razil again. Like, this guy doesn't have any other things to do really. In the previous book, I forgot to mention, in the City of Fallen Angels, it was actually at the end of the book 3, actually towards the end, it was City of Glass, this happened. Clary gave him a mark on his forehead with like rune power, rune creation power. He gave Simon a mark on his head called the Mark of Cain. I might be pronouncing that wrong. And it basically kills anyone who tries to kill him. And that's how they defeated Lilith in the previous book, Fallen Angels, because he pretty much stepped in the way of her trying to kill Clary, and so her magic went on to him, which bounced back onto her and sent her back to hell, basically. Because of that, he thought he would be the safe bet to go summon Raziel, because they needed some sort of weapon to unlink Jonathan slash Sebastian and Jace. Oh my god, this is so weird. I actually liked it. It was much more entertaining than Valentine and Raziel's interaction, despite how interesting I felt that was. Like, Simon could pretty much banter with anyone, it shows, even with an angry angel who just wants to go back to wherever he was. Simon pretty much convinces the angel to give him some the Archangel's Michael's sword, which is called Glorious, and in exchange he ripped off the mark of Cain off of him. Well, not ripped off, but took it away from him, so he no longer has that protection anymore. So yeah, that happened, and it pretty much was inflamed with heavenly fire, and which pretty much goes forward with how they unlinked Jace and Sebastian. Simon, I believe, told her to kill it with not Jonathan, Sebastian. Oh my god, so many names. Oh my god, I can't handle it. Pretty much told her to kill it with Sebastian, but she sort of thought about it in a different way, and then sort of stabbed Jace with it, hoping that it would not kill him and unleash the two. And at first it appeared to have killed him, but then he is actually alive towards the end, but he's actually filled with heavenly fire in him that he can't really control, so he can't really touch Clary because it will burn her. That all pretty much happens, and I always found like the interactions, but like the threesome, well, not really a threesome, but the interactions with Jace, Clary and Sebastian to be really weird. I felt really weird reading it. I was like, this is so odd. I feel so sorry for Clary. So yeah, that's done. And this big heavy book, oh my god, I remembered like reading this in the breaks of my TV and film production class in college, and I just remember just being under the desk being like, it's pretty much what I did with all these books while in social interactions. I think that says a lot about me. Yeah, so the City of Heavenly Fire. Basically, Jace has all this heavenly fire in him. He doesn't know how to control it. Basically, they're trying to find a way to get this heavenly fire out of him so they can use it against killing Jonathan. Not Jonathan, Sebastian, because he's pretty much referring to himself as Sebastian at this point. And I forgot to mention, Jace and Sebastian are unlinked by this point, so there is no connection between them anymore. Jace hates his guts again. Pretty much trying to hunt down Sebastian and stop him. And also, I forgot to mention, Sebastian, at the end of the last book, I believe, has started to create darkened shadowhunters, like a new breed of shadowhunters, but they only complied to his wishes, and they're very like, they were a dark version of Shadowhunters, basically, like a really dark version. And he started creating them with normal Shadowhunters, sort of, like he's fed them the ingredients of this darkened race through the Mortal Cup, and yeah, it pretty much killed everyone at the end. It was really interesting to see people turn against themselves in a way. You could see all the pain and grief throughout the books because of this, because some people had to kill their parati because they became darkened, and or had to watch their sibling die like Luke did. It's very much a sad but a good conclusion to the story overall, because they did manage to defeat Sebastian, which is obvious, but it's also very heartbreaking for Sebastian, because when they finally kill him, he has this momentarily moment when he's just Jonathan, the Jonathan he could have been if there was no demonic blood in his veins. Like, he had green eyes, and he killed all the Undarkened because he was like, I should have never created you guys. And in that rare moment, Jace and Jocelyn saw the son/brother that could have been, what could have been, really. And it's really sad in that moment, because you know, all of this never really would have happened if Valentine never really experimented on his kids, but then it could have never really happened if they should have sort of treated Jace at the beginning. So, you know, there's lots of things they should have done, but at the end, I think this is one, out of the whole series of the Immortal Instruments, this is probably like the second favourite, and then it's followed by the first book, and then above that is the third book. It's really weird. I don't know what else to say about this book without, I know I've said some spoilers, but I don't, well, if you haven't read the book, I can't really explain to you how in depth it is. That, I think that's the right word I'm looking for, because it's basically a book of what could have been or what can be and what to do with themselves afterwards, because there is no more evil at that current time to defeat. So at the end anyway, and you know, they just sort of all have to live their lives and sort of live with the questions of what if or what could have been. I think the main thing about this book as well was the introduction of Emma Carstairs, if I'm pronouncing that right, and the Blackthorn family, who were attacked at the Los Angeles Institute. I believe so. Someone's going to correct me and shout at me for that. Yeah, they were introduced in this book because Emma, in the next book, sequel of the Dark, I'm not going to pronounce the series name, but in the sequel series, she's introduced a bit more older, but she's about either 12 or 13 in this book, and she pretty much witnesses Sebastian attacking the Los Angeles Institute and turning several shadowhunters into a darkened shadowhunters, and so that's pretty much traumatic, as well as the fact that she finds out her parents have been murdered, which sort of is sort of the first main plot of the sequel series. Yeah, we're introduced to them, which I felt was a good sort of thing, because I didn't want to go into the next series without any knowledge about any of the characters I was reading about. Like, I wanted to know there was going to be an actual good story there. And I think that's why I've been so hesitant to read the prequel books, because I don't really know anything about the characters apart from there's Magnus in it. I got very mixed feelings on this book. I'm just like, yeah, I liked it, but sad, but good. Out of a mark of 10, I would give the series as a whole an 8, or a 7.5. I'll give it an 8 actually, yeah, let's stick it to an 8. The main reason I'm giving it that score is mainly because of the characters, because they really touched something with me. That sounds really weird. I really understood the characters, so I'm going to briefly talk about them now. Clary Fairchild, or Clary Frey, or whatever we're calling her now. She has like 3 surnames, I believe. Clary, in the first 3 books, I really understood what she was going through. I understood that she didn't really know what was going on, because I didn't know what was going on. But by the 4th book, it was becoming sort of ridiculous. It was just like, Clary, stop being an idiot. Stop it. Like, she's more irritating in the books, I believe, than in the TV series, because even though she was raised upon mundanes, even though that should bring something new perspective to the table, she sort of takes that to a dumb level in the books, and I'm just like, why? And I can't 100% fault her for that, because I don't know, I just can't 100% fault her for that. I don't know why I feel like I can't really necessarily blame her for her stupidity sometimes. But I love the fact that she pretty much does anything to save her friends or family, especially Jace, and I love the relationship they had, because even though it had its rocky patches, especially thinking they were brother and sister in verse, their love was very, while it was very intense, and sometimes it was very bad intense, like that they sometimes were a little bit bad for each other, in the end they always came for each other, they always believed in each other, and I loved that. And their connection has a lot to do with their angelic blood in their veins, which I'm totally fine with. But I start to sometimes wonder, would they still have that love for each other if the angelic extra blood wasn't in there? I always wonder that when I think about Clary and Jace's relationship, because even though I love them and I wish them well, I always sort of wonder to myself, would they still have that love for each other if the angelic blood wasn't involved? So that's my sort of wondering, and maybe you guys can make your opinions down below, or shout at me, whatever you feel like. My favourite character was Simon, actually, because even though he's a lot more wittier than I am, I sort of felt a kindership with him, because he just sort of tries to make jokes of any situation no matter how bad it is, and that's what I do sometimes. I just sort of try to laugh it off even though I'm sort of hurting inside. And I loved him as well in the last book, because him and Magnus don't really have a great friendship. I wouldn't say they're even friends actually, but he sacrifices his life to save Magnus and all his friends as well, so that they can get back to Earth. And well, he didn't really necessarily sacrifice his life, because in the end, all that the demon wanted from him was to have all his memories of the Shadowhunter world and his daylighter powers as well as vampire powers, and then he could be just a normal mundane again. But he would forget about Clary's existence, and as well as the shadow world and the downworlder world is all together. So he'd pretty much be a normal mundane. And I felt really horrible that couldn't be Simon's happy ending, because I know that he was in love with Isabel at the end, and you know, he probably wanted to be with his friends and family. His friends and family basically. But I felt like they sort of pushed at being a shadow hunter on him because they wanted him to remember them. And I felt really bad in that way that they sort of did that to him. Like I know they sort of gave him a choice, but they actively seeked him out and said, look, do you want to be a shadow hunter and remember all your memories? And he's like, oh, maybe. I find it really hard to find that as him becoming a shadow hunter a good thing, because they sort of, I have mixed feelings about it. Maybe you guys can tell me your thoughts about it. I loved Isabel's character. I wish we could have explored more about her relationship with her parents, especially with her father, because apparently she loved her father. I loved that towards the end she fell in love with Simon, and apparently they're getting together and they're getting married now by the, spoilers. Apparently they're getting married now. And I loved her development throughout the series, as well as her relationship with Clary, because in the first book she wasn't highly fond of her, but she wasn't as horrible to her as Alec was. But she became friends with Clary slowly throughout the series, and regarded her sort of a family member really towards the end. And I loved that about Isabel, because she sort of opened her heart a bit more to Clary, more quicker than Alec did. And Alec, I don't know where Alec sort of stands with Clary really. I don't know if they're friends or whatever, but I love Alec's character as well, don't get me wrong. I loved that he sort of accepted himself and accepted his feelings for Magnus, and sort of started a life of Magnus. But I didn't like how he sort of took his frustrations for his love for Jace onto Clary. So I was like, dude, it's not her fault, he's just not gay, and you're parasitised, so you can't really be together anyway. I didn't really like him in the first book because of that, because I was just like, whoa dude, it's not really her fault. Maybe she did overstep the bounds at one point, but still, whoa, calm down. But I grew to love Alec as well as all the characters. Magnus, I don't know what to say about Magnus. I love his character overall. I love him, but I can't say too much about him without reading the internal devices, as well as the Bane Chronicles that is both taunting me upstairs saying, read me, and I'm just like, I want to read them, but sometimes I don't have the motivation or the will to do it, because I'm just like, oh, I'm so tired, I don't want to read, and it's the summertime. So yeah, I'm hoping to start reading the Internal Devices book, though, by the end of this week or the beginning of next week. I'm not going to make any hardline promises, but we'll see. Well, I'm hoping. I don't really know what much I can say about the Mortal Instruments series that I haven't already said. I'm pretty much not really a talking girl when it comes to books. I'm more of a, I'll write a big review on it and blah blah blah, and I'll express all my thoughts on there. So this is sort of really new to me when it comes to talking about books, because I know I sometimes sort of leave these out if I'm talking about them to a person or people. But I have tried my best. I've sort of tried to fit everything in together and sort of tried to talk about all the main stuff that happens and all the main characters. So let me know, guys, what you thought of this review and my talk about the Mortal Instrument books. Tell me how I can improve in the future when it comes to more book reviews, because I did write notes, but I didn't write many notes. I don't know how to get better at this, so give me your thoughts and opinions, guys. And let me know what you thought of the Mortal Instrument book series as a whole as well, and let me know if you've disagreed with me or agreed with me on anything. And try and encourage me to read the internal devices, please. I need that motivation. And my next video should be of the Mortal Instruments slash Shadowhunters videos chronicles. Should be up next week. So let me know what your thoughts and comments are down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye.